Okay, welcome to this episode. Today we are going to try to get this thing to light up. If you were with me in the last video, we built the Snowflake and it went pretty well. I haven't really made any changes to it other than I did cut out a small piece of PEX tubing for the bottom. I guess it's not in frame right now, but I cut out a small piece of PEX tubing for the bottom, and then I used my snippers just to cut a slit out of the back so that I could slide it over the wires. After I put that on, when I light it up, it'll light up the whole circle. So for this episode, we have our model that we built. We're going to talk about the hardware that we need to connect it to. And then we'll talk about how to get your computer to talk to the hardware in order to tell it to light up these lights. Okay, before I jump into the hardware, I want to talk about these guys. Okay, this clip right here, I'm going to use 4 of those to hold the prop to the wall. It's just going to clip onto the PEX tubing. And I will leave these clips on the house year-round. When I take down the prop, these will stay up there. But when I put the prop up, I just have to clip it into these. So that's a little tip for you. It'll make setup and tear down a lot easier. I took a picture with my Pixel model. I'm going to go ahead and download that. So I'll select it and then download it. Okay, it's in my downloads folder, so I can choose a file. So I can double click on that. Okay, now this is already, or it adjusted the canvas size to my picture size. We're going to do a 2D model because it's a 2D prop. You can do 3D models if you're doing trees, or I have some reindeer that I might do 3D models with. So we have our canvas. We can change the image brightness, so we can make it darker or lighter. So you can name your model Snowflake Big, because it's a big snowflake. Okay, nodes. Let's start by adding some nodes. So what we want to do is we want to zoom in and we want to start clicking in order how we've wired this. It starts right where my pointer is right now. So I can click on there. And then remember, if you watch the build, you remember I skipped every other one. So when we start numbering, or when we start adding nodes, we have to remember to do that. And we're going to click all of these in the same order that you wired them. Okay, so the hardware you're going to need a computer, a controller. Controller I'm using is made by Falcon. It's their F16 version 3. You're going to need a power supply. You will also need an Ethernet switch. And then you're going to need 2 Ethernet cables. One cable will connect the controller to the switch, and the other cable will connect the switch to the computer. Okay, so once you have your power supply connected to your controller, and that's pretty easy to do. I used an inexpensive extension cord to connect your power supply to your controller, as well as you can use the end with the plug to connect your power supply to a power source. Some of the parts I use to connect the controller to the pixels. Okay, once you have power to your controller and you have the Ethernet plugged into your switch and the switch plugged into your computer, you can go ahead and power on your controller. Okay, once your controller is powered up, you should see some lights come on. And on the screen of the controller, you'll be able to see what your IP address is. Now, what you're going to do then is use that IP address, open up a browser on your computer, and then type in that IP address, and you should get to the home page of your controller. There is one thing I want to point out. If when you type in the IP address, it gives you a message like this site can't be reached, that probably means that the IP address on your controller is not working with your default gateway. What that means is you need to check what your default gateway is, and you can do that by you can open up a command prompt on your computer. So you can click on Start and then type in CMD and hit enter in the search bar, and it'll open up a command prompt. And then you can type ipconfig, ipconfig, and then hit enter. And that will, your screen will fill up with some text. You want to scroll up until you see the default gateway. Now my default gateway says 192.168.0.1. Yours may be different. If yours is different, then you'll have to set an IP address for your controller with this. You want the first 3 sets of numbers that are divided by the periods. You want the first 3 sets of numbers to match, and then you can give your controller a different number after that. So since my default gateway says 192.168.0.1, then my controller also needs to say 192.168.0. And then after that next point, I can give my controllers different numbers. For mine, I labeled mine 50, 51, 52, 53 because I have 4 controllers right now. I just started at 50 because I figured that those IP addresses weren't currently in use on my network. That's one thing you want to be aware of, is you want to label, or you want to assign IP addresses that are different from any other device on your network. So it can't conflict with your cell phones, your printers, your other computers. If you have other devices on your network, every device on your network has its own IP address, and you don't want your controllers to have the same IP addresses as any of those other devices. Otherwise, it will cause conflicts, and your network and your devices will not work properly. Once you're able to log into your controller, the next step is to make sure that your model is set up, or that your controller is set up correctly for your model. Let's go in order through these tabs. Eventually we'll get to this string ports. It starts you at your status page, and it shows on here that you have 32 different universes. Universes are not your ports or your output ports, because this controller has 16 output ports. Okay, then you have the test section, and this is where we're going to go once we know that our model is set up, or once we think we have it set up, we'll go over to the test tab and we'll make sure they light up. Inputs, we're not going to worry about this. Network configuration, if you want to change your IP address, you can do that here, or you can do it directly on the controller. And this is useful when you have multiple controllers and you want to make sure that you're logged into the correct one. This is also the tab where you can save and reboot the controller. If you've made changes and something's not working right, sometimes you just need to save and reboot it. Okay, the E131. This shows us our universes, and it shows the size that we have them set at. You can change the sizes or you can just leave them. This is the addressing mode. So it's set to absolute addressing right now. So absolute addressing, this mode is used to map string ports to an absolute address. If your start addresses in your sequencer can be larger than 512, this mode most likely is for you. Some sequencers players that support this mode are FPP, xLights, LSP, Vixen, and others. So since we're going to be using xLights or Vixen, we can use this. Okay, and then this lets us know what our start channel is for each universe. Okay, now let's get to our string ports. Now I've already set this up for my Snowflake. I'm starting on channel 1, and there's 84 pixels. Now this is where you're going to see your ports. There's 16 ports on this controller. For port 1, I have 84 pixels plugged in. Port 2, I also have 84. Port 3 is 84. Port 4 is 84. And then port 5, I have 77. And that's the circle around the Snowflake. So my Snowflake itself has 136. Circle around it has 77 pixels. Now your start channels, since we're starting at 1, and we have 84 pixels, the end channel for port 1 is going to be 252. So the start channel for the next one should be one higher than that, so 253. It gives you the end channel once you have the start channel typed in. And then for the next one, you just add 1, and then it gives you what your end channel is. So you just add 1 for the next line and make sure that's set. Oh, one other thing. On port 5, since I'm using pixel string, or strip, I should say, pixel strip, and I found out that it is not actually RGB as far as the color order. They're sold as RGB, but when you actually plug them in, they're in a different order. And mine are BRG. So I had to change that so that when I want it to turn red, it actually turns red. When I want it to turn blue, it turns blue. Okay, once your controller is set up, or at least you think it's set up, we can go over to the test, check the first 5 ports, and then enable a color wash. And let me turn on the other camera and we can see what this does. Okay, once everything is working, once you can test it on the controller, you're ready to go into the software. So you're gonna, if you don't have it installed already, you're gonna head over to xLights. You can just search for xLights download, and then you have downloads. That'll take you to a downloads page. I'm running Windows on this computer, so I installed the Windows version. So let's go ahead and open up xLights. My controller I can install as an E1.31. Okay, so when you click on that, it takes you to this. We're setting up the controller now. I want the method to be unicast. I just use unicast. The IP address for my controller is 192.168.0.52. Starting universe is 1, and I know that the number of universes for my controller is 32. 1 output, I'm going to uncheck that because I want to see all 16 outputs. Each universe is set to 510. You can give it a description. I like to describe it as to what I'm actually plugging into it. So I'm going to do snowflakes and house outline. And then controller type. My controller is a Falcon F16 version 3, so we'll put that. And we can use auto start channels. So let's go ahead and try that. And then we'll save the setup. We can open up the tools menu and open up a test. And what we can do is click the first 3 universes. 1,530 channels divided by 3 will give us 510 pixels. So those 3 universes are going to cover our prop. Now there's different options here. There's a couple different chases. So this is good if you want to make sure that you created your model, your virtual model correctly. It's going to go through each pixel in order. You could do another chase, and this is just changing all at once between all the colors. The main thing here and what we're looking at is that everything is lit up. So the next thing would be the layout. Now to add a custom model, once you've designed your model on the xLights custom model builder, you can export it and it's going to download as a file. Remember where it downloaded. If you didn't change it, it's probably in your download folder. And then what we're going to do is click on this create new import custom. It's the third box from the right. So you'll just click on it once, and then you're going to draw a box out here. And then you're going to click on the model you want. Now I have 2 of them here. I actually changed the resolution. You can change on the tool where you created the model, you can change the graph size. You can make it finer so it looks better. It saves as a bigger file, but it's going to look better. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I want to make it more round. Yeah, so normally you're going to put a background image here. You're going to take a picture of your house or your yard. Actually, I could do that. Let's go ahead and select a background image. I did take a picture of my house, so let's go ahead and open that. Okay, so here's my background image. I'm going to drop down the brightness. Now normally you want to take this background image. I'm going to retake this picture without lights on. That way I can make a brand new design. Now that we have a background image, now we can draw in our new model. So I'll pick that one, open. Now I want to zoom in because I'm going to put this snowflake where the other one is. Now my new snowflake is actually bigger than my other ones, so hopefully it'll fit. Actually, I know it'll fit because the sheet that these are on are 4 feet. Now we're not done. We drew it on, but we're going to have to go over here and click on our model, and then we're going to have to make some changes over here. So we have our name, model big, snowflake big, and I'm going to put left because it's left. It's the left one. When I add the other one, I'll make it right. Model data, we're not going to do anything there. Strings, we have, how many strings? We're using 5 ports, so we'll have 5 strings and individual start nodes. So this starting string should be 85. It should start at 85. The next one, add 84 to that. So 85 plus 84 is 169. And then the next one should be 253. And then add 84 to that. And you should get 337. Okay, that should be correct. Okay, controller, we can use start channel. That should be fine. Start channel is going to be 1 because it's the first model. Okay, once we have the model, go to test and then go to models and click it. And if it all lights up, I think we're good. Okay, let's go to the sequencer now. We have to create a new sequence. So we can click this, the piece of paper with lines on it. And if you have a song, you can do that. Just for testing, we'll just do an animation. I guess 40 frames per second. and we want all models, quick start. Now we can play around with some of these effects. Let's start with a fan. So you just click it and drag down. Okay, this on the left shows you what it's going to look like. We can change the radius if we make it bigger to take up the whole model. And then there's a radius too, and that's going to be the center. So if you don't want it to take up the center of the model. Okay, once you're at the sequence, you can turn on this light bulb and it outputs it to the lights. So we can see what that looks like. So that's what that sequence looks like. Let's try another effect. A lot of these effects you're just going to want to try out and see how they look on your model and see if you can get them to look good. Okay, this is colors rainbow. You can have the palette and it's only going to show the colors that you have selected. So you can add more colors and we can turn on the lights and see what it looks like. So that's supposed to be a candle. You can do each node as its own candle. Color wash. Now that's going to go through all the colors we have selected, I believe. Right now, I just have the prop as one big prop. Where the fun part happens is when you start breaking it up into submodels and then you create groups of your submodels. In the next episode, we are going to go back to the custom model builder and we are going to create submodels for the Snowflake. We'll put a song in there and do a little bit of sequencing. And if you like what you've seen on this video and found it useful, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and you will be notified when new videos come out.